Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening and welcome to another Dhamma session. As the time is rolling on, we must look into our lives and develop wisdom because the time is running out every day. Otherwise, this whole world, all the things that we do, is like a big waste of time, a big drama, not reality. The reality is this is Nama Rupa, it is changing, it is Anicca Dukkha Anatta. Greed, hatred, aversion arising, causing people to fall into the trap of defilements and committing unwholesome, or sometimes even committing wholesome, also doing wholesome through non greed or non hatred, but still some amount of delusion, then therefore it is still a karma, producing rebirth and producing continuity of existence, therefore no freedom from suffering. You think it's a little too quick, but that's the way it is. So we must use our human life to develop that fine aspect of wisdom, knowing things correctly, knowing the working of the law of karma, knowing the working of the greed, hatred, aversion, especially the greed, hatred, ignorance, especially the ignorance, moha, which is the most powerful of our defilements, and come out of it. That's the wise way of doing things. Rest all, a big show of a drama having no substance. But then we must understand the Sammuti and the Paramatha. Conventional, in day to day life, how do we have to manage things wisely with mindfulness and wisdom? And also, how do we have to graduate ourselves to the ultimate realities? Not to be fooled by the realities that are apparent, that are just appearing but not real. So, our faculties of mindfulness and wisdom will help us. Sati and Panya will help us to understand, to decipher, to uncover, and to know the realities as it is, and to come out of the drama, not to be fooled by it, not to be trapped by it. So, as we were discussing last time, last few occasions, if you remember, we were discussing about the fetters. We have discussed about already five. They call five lower fetters because they are the fetters which keep the beings tied up in the lower realms or in the sensory realms, primarily in the sensory realms. Kama Vachara. Now we are about to discuss remaining ones. They are the more subtle ones. The sense desire and the aversion or the hatred, and the sakayaditi or self view, and all these things. Silabhata Paramasa, rites and rituals, adherence, wrongly grasping at the rites and rituals, and all these. These are sort of gross ones. Then there are subtle ones. Kama, Rupa Raga, Arupa Raga. Rupa Raga is when one attends to the Rupa Jhana, first four jhanas, first, second, third, and the fourth, which are called Rupa Jhanas, based on a subtle material, the focus in those jhanas, the higher meditative states. The object of these is, say, say our breath, and it becomes subtler and subtler and subtler. So it's fine material object, which is the object of focus. Fine material objects, very fine, very refined, like very fine particles or subatomic particles or like waves. Very fine, very refined, not gross at all, but material objects nonetheless. So when people develop these high levels of samadhis, first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, whatever, then it's very subtle. So as we were mentioning pleasures and replacing it with our meditative states and higher meditative states, and so automatically even those so much of attachment to the sense pleasure, sensory experiences and excitements or whatever, and that is replaced by these experience of these jhanas. When one starts experiencing them, it is so powerful and subtle that those so overpowering experiences are also considered, that person starts considering them as inferior. No, these are very gross. This one is very subtle, very peaceful, very deep. These ones, these rupa jhanas, the concentration, meditative absorption based on concentration, which is focused on a subtle material object, or I mean, subtle material, very sukshma, what you call rupa, material object. So you can imagine that when these experiences can actually suppress or remove the urge from the beings for sensory enjoyments, so it is more powerful than sensory enjoyments. And in the normal day-to-day life, if you see, sensory enjoyments are considered as the highest kinds of pleasures amongst the people, and these jhana experiences, rupa jhana experiences, can actually be a more powerful substitute than the sensory experiences. So you can imagine how powerful and how subtle the gross and how subtle the enjoyment is. So when you develop, anybody develops them, automatically there is a certain amount of attachment to that. In fact, very powerful attachment. So when it is there, when it is there, excuse me, what happens? So somebody who has cut down these lower fetters, which we discussed already, but then he has attained to the anagami level, and then he is stuck. stuck with the craving for these higher meditative states, the experience that is very subtle and so delightful. He enjoys it, but then he has to come out of it. This is Rupa Raga, delight or craving, attachment for higher, for Rupa jhanas, jhanas based on subtle materials, subtle materiality, which is so subtle and absorbing and powerful and delightful, but one has to understand them as anicca dukkha anatta. They arise, they exist for some time, and then they pass away. One cannot abide in the jhana for eternity. One will come out of it at a certain point of time. And when one comes out, again, all these sensory experiences will be bombarded, and then worldly experiences. So it is not a freedom from dukkha. And then when one is attached to them, say one is attached to the rupa jhanas and he dies at the time of death, he is practicing these one of these two rupa jhanas. He is born in one of these rupa vachara, divine world, rupa brahmas, we say, very high level of divine beings. But that life is also very long but still impermanent, long and delightful and pleasant and free from general sufferings like this sickness and all these aging and all these worldly general day-to-day sufferings that we experience. It is free from those things. It is very, very high levels, divine levels. You have the body like a light wave, very subtle, and you live very long and you enjoy a lot of these experiences, then you die. You die, don't immediately, but you die after, say, millions or mostly billions of years later, you die. So when you die, what happens? See, you have experienced these enjoyments for such a long time, you have become accustomed to it, and then you die. You suddenly lose it all. How painful. Somebody who has been a poor man or a poor woman, a poor person, he loses a little bit of money here and there, it will hurt that person. But then that person had always been poor, never been rich. So he doesn't know, that person doesn't know the experience of richness or luxury. So he knows, oh, it is my ill fate or whatever he thinks. Not a ill fate, it is maybe primarily because of the karma, etc. But he thinks, okay, it has to happen, it has happened like this. I have earlier also lost many times. Maybe earlier I have lost hundreds of rupees or maybe thousands. This time maybe just a 50 rupees, 60 rupees, 70 rupees. Okay, I will get along with it. But somebody who has been an extremely rich man, a billionaire, suddenly loses all the money. You can imagine his shock. That's what happens when people, especially these Rupa Vachara Devas, Rupa Vachara Brahmas, they die from there and born in the lower worlds. That will be their, and their shock is far more than that, because their enjoyment is their experience in that very high and subtle realm is so delightful that when they fall from it, it comes as such a huge shock and pain and suffering for them. And they fall into this again, roll on, roll on, roll on. So there is no freedom from dukkha. Then there is next arupa jhanas. So far we have talked about rupa jhanas, meditative absorptions based on subtle materiality. Now, at a level of the fourth jhana, when one reaches the culmination of the fourth jhana, and then one considers the subtle, very subtle, like electromagnetic waves or light waves, that subtle materiality is also like a big burden. So one starts letting it go, and then one starts relying on the mind itself. So the mental object is, which is no material at all, just the pure mental object is the object of meditation. So these, there are four absorptions, higher absorptions. They're called arupa jhanas. So you can imagine even the subtlest and most finest of the particles, material particles, finer than subatomic particles, also is considered gross. So his mind has reached that level, and then his mind is transcending to only mental objects one by one. How subtle the mind has become, how powerful the mind has become. But at the same point of time, you can imagine the kind of delight and enjoyment one would have when he reaches to that level of jhana, arupa jhanas. Normally you wouldn't experience, you cannot imagine, no, you cannot imagine, because it is so subtle and so delightful and so overpowering, you cannot even imagine, beyond imagination. But then one who has reached there, you can imagine his level of delight, overall delight he is experiencing, so powerful, overpowering. And then if he is born, when he's at the death moment, his mind is absorbed in that arupa, one of these arupa jhanas, and then he dies, he's born in arupa brahma, where they don't have the body itself, they just have the mental existence, no body, and they live not billions, not trillions, much much more than that, such long existence they have. And then you can imagine such, you can say this is the highest enjoyment in the entire 31 planes of existence, all these arupa jhanas, the highest of jhanas, arupa jhanas, they are the highest levels of beings in the in these 31 planes, and they are in that realm. So they are basically enjoying the highest as can be enjoyed by a living being in the entire realms of existence. In amongst all 31, they are the ones highest, like all these uppermost, the uppermost four, akasanchayatana, vinyananchayatana, etc. Kinchayatana, nimbasana. So if they are enjoying the highest and then losing that enjoyment, the pain also can be the highest. And that's what happens with such beings. They live there millions, billions, trillions, or quadrillions, and maybe more than that, and then one day die, have to fall from it to a lower level. How painful their loss would be, how shocking for it would be for them, and it is. So then, from anagami to arahant, the person, the Arya person who has become anagami, he develops the wisdom of anicca dukkha anatta at the rupa jhana level and also at the arupa jhana. So this is also anicca dukkha anatta. There is no safety. It is still subject to birth and death, still subject to rising and falling. There is no freedom from suffering. So he cuts down. If he has to become a arahant, he has to cut it down. So rupa jhana, arupa jhana. I'm just giving very short kind of this thing, because it is so powerful and subtle that it is not possible. Uh, so that's then mana. Mana is, there's a gross I, we have discussed. Gross I. So there's a sutta called Khemaka Sutta. It is in the Samyutta Nikaya. It is a series of conversation between certain elder monks in Kosambi and another monk called Khemaka, who was ill. And then these elder monks, of course, they were arahants. So what happened is, then when in the evening time they came out of their meditation, and then they addressed another monk called Dasaka and said, your friend Dasaka, please go to monk Khemaka and see how he is doing, because Venerable Khemaka was unwell at that time. So these elder monks knew he was unwell, so they wanted to know, and they wanted to give him some advice, basically. So like that, it's a big sutta, so maybe not possible to discuss the sutta here, but the point of mana and ditti, it is highlighted here very clearly by these elder arahant theras. So so you may have a doubt, why am I discussing this ditti and mana. Ditti and mana. Ditti is Sakkaya Ditti, I-ness, self-view. And mana is also there's a conceit, or there's a concept, there's a feeling, I am. So what is the difference between this Sakkaya Ditti and mana? This is also self-view, I, and this mana is also something to do with I. So these arahant monks, they are sending, basically it is a series of exchanges. They're sending messages to this, through this monk called Dasaka, to another monk called Venerable Dasaka is going to Venerable Khemaka, carrying the message of these arahant theras. So they are going, he's delivering their messages, basically Dhamma messages, or you should look into this Panchakhanda like this. So they're saying here, friends, even though the noble disciple has abandoned the 5 lower fetters which we had discussed, he still has, with regard to the 5 clinging aggregates, as a lingering residual I am conceit, I am desire, I am obsession. But at a later time, he keeps focusing on the phenomena of arising and passing away with regard to the five clinging aggregates, such as form, such as origin, disappearance, such as feeling, perception, fabrication, etc. Keeps focusing on the arising and passing away of these five clinging aggregates. The residual I am conceit, I am desire, I am obsession is also fully obliterated. And then they have given an example. Just as a cloth, dirty and strained, its owners give it over to a washerman who scrubs it with salt earth or eye or cow dung and then rinses it with clear water. Now, even though the cloth is clean and spotless, it still has a lingering residual scent of salt earth or eye or cow dung. The washerman gives to washerman gives it to owners. The owners put it away in the scent infused weaker hamper, and the lingering residual scent of salt earth, eye, or cow dung is fully obliterated. So there is a gross feeling of I, which is primarily connected with this body, and of course, to some extent, with the mind. With these five aggregates, Panchakhanda, Rupa, that is Kaya, body, Vedana, sensation, perceptions, Sanya, Sankhara, mental qualities, mental factors, and Vijnana, consciousness. So, with regard to these five, he has removed the gross I, the strong I. He has removed it at the level of being a Sotapanna when he removes the first three fetters, Sakaya, Ditti, Vicikiccha, Silabhata, Paramasa. However, there is a lingering residual I with regard to this Panchakhanda, because this clinging has not been abandoned. This Panchakhanda is not just Panchakhanda here, clinging aggregates. The elder Theras, Arhan Theras, they are saying clinging aggregates. Pancha Upadana Khanda. It is Pancha Upadana Khanda. What is the difference between Panchakhanda and Pancha Upadana? Panchakhanda we all have. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. Pancha Upadana Khanda is there is a element of clinging to these as this is I, or this is I, or this is I, like this. One of this is I. So then when we cling, in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta also, Lord Buddha has said, Sankittena Panchupadana Khanda Dukkha. When we cling, then the dukkha arises. When Panchakhanda is Panchakhanda just seen as Panchakhanda arising and passing away, Arhants also have Panchakhanda, but they just see it as arising and passing away correctly, completely. Therefore, there is no upadana, there is no clinging, there is no holding, trying to hold on to anything. Therefore, no dukkha. Or for the rest of the people, there is still, even for anagami also, subtle level of clinging, not to the body, primarily not to the body. In case of an anagami, it may not be so much with the body as such, because he has understood the rupa raga, the kama raga and vyapada, and these two are connected with the body primarily, and also to mind, but more to do with the body. So when he has uprooted the kama raga and vyapada, the anagami wouldn't have such a residual clinging, not so strong with the body, maybe very subtle. But with regard to the mental aggregates, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana, yes, he will be. And when it will be, so there's a subtle residual clinging still remaining in anagami, that is mana. Just as the example, like you go give it to washerman wash it with some kind of like those, in those earlier times they use some kind of soil which has these properties of soap and all, or cow dung and some other materials. When it is washed and clean, it is clean, but that smell is still there. The Washerman washes, cleans, dries, gives it back to the owner. Owner takes it, but immediately is not using it. What he is doing, he is keeping it a scented uh, box or something for some time, some days maybe. And then this residual smell of these washing agents or washing ingredients, they are also gone. So that is the ditti is the gross defilement, a gross sense of I, which is like like a stain on the cloth, which is washed when sakaya ditti is uprooted. This is removed, but the smell is still there. This is a very nice example given by these elderly arhantheras. So what it means is the gross I sense of I has been removed by uprooting the sakayaditi. However, the subtle one, that lingering smell of I still has in the mind of an anagami, that is mana. That has to be uprooted. That is one of the fetters. If he has to become an arahant, he has to uproot. So he uproots it. Anagami uproots it. Kamaraga, Ruparaga, Aruparaga, then Mana. The subtle eye, subtle clinging of through the eye, through the concept of eye. So that's the three. So we have discussed 8 total. Now we will not discuss the remaining 2 today. Maybe another day we'll have. Maybe in this week, end of this week, by the end of this week. So we'll finish that because we'll have a little meditation. Otherwise, we won't get time for meditation. We have discussed enough of Dhamma. So we'll just do a little meditation. Ultimately, this is what will open up our hearts. So sit comfortably, make your mind calm and peaceful. Feel a sense of happiness, ease. Okay, so far I have been hearing the Dhamma, this noble Dhamma of the Buddha, enlightening step by step all these defilements, fetters, explained to the highest of detail by the Supreme Buddha, how to uproot them also. It is wonderful. You will find a sense of piti, a joy, a rapture, if you contemplate like this correctly with wisdom about the noble Dhamma. This is so helpful in your meditation, this piti. It lets your heart settle down, become peaceful. With this sense of ease, sense of joy, sense of rapture, sense of delight, settle down. Let your heart settle down. Let things come and go. No need to fight with anything. No need to go anywhere. Go beyond the things. Go to the deepness, peacefulness of your heart. No fighting with the thoughts. No fighting with the past and future. Being here with sense of ease and comfort. Stay with mindfulness with your object. It can be breath, or you may be aware of the body itself, or the chitta, the mind. But everywhere you have to just do it with mindfulness and with a mind of letting go, and no clinging. Develop. The more you don't cling, your concentration becomes more and more powerful. You go deeper and deeper. If it becomes powerful, deep, very strong, one pointed, then need not continue to be obsessive with the object. Slowly graduate yourself into this one pointedness. Radiate metta, loving kindness to all sentient beings, but first to yourself. We will conclude with the blessings. Sabbitiho vibhajjanto sabbarogo vinassato mate bhavattu antarayo sukhi deghayo ko bhava अभिवादनशीलिस्य नित्यं वड्डपचायिनो चत्वारो धम्मा वर्धन्ति आयुवन्नो सुखं वदम् अभिभवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वबुद्धानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वधर्मानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते भवतु सर्वमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सर्वदेवता सर्वसङ्घानुभावेन सदा सुखी भवन्तु ते. May, by the blessings of Triple Gem, all of you be happy, peaceful, keep progressing on the path of Dhamma, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana at the earliest. Sukhino Bhavantu.